Welcome to the Books by Anthony Owens Podcast. This is where he shares his journey, the life lessons, challenges, and defining moments that shaped his voice as an author. Each episode explores the inspiration behind his books, the purpose in every story, and features select passages that bring his message to life. Meet his incredible friends and learn where his books are available and how to stay connected as his future projects continue to unfold. So relax, settle into the groove, and let the jazz guide you into his world of storytelling and truth. Powered by SKST Radio Network and Street Grind Entertainment.
Welcome to the Books by Anthony Owens Podcast. Hello, and welcome to my third episode. It's a pleasure to be back. Pleasure to have you all with me. First, I want to make an announcement. Starting yesterday and today and tomorrow, my book, Syrup Sandwiches, Choose Not to Give Up, the award-winning book, is free on the Kindle version on Amazon. So all you have to do is go to Amazon, search Anthony Owens, or just search Syrup Sandwiches Anthony Owens. Go to the Kindle, select it, and it's on your device. It's free. All you have to do is take advantage of this opportunity, because I just felt like doing it, because the book is such a positive book, right? So it's such a motivating book. Why not give it away to as many people as possible? I've done that. This is not my first time doing it, but I want to do it again this year. So take advantage of it. Like I said, you have today and tomorrow to get it done. And thank you. So today, I want to talk about my other book, Reasons, which is a suspense thriller. Then I'm going to talk about another topic or two. I have some bread box letters that I'm going to discuss today as well. One of my main topics today is masculinity and modern men, right? How men used to think back in the day, right? How they were, I know what it's like when you have parents and men in the family who always tell you, don't cry, suck it up, be tough. Those roles, those things have changed. Things are different, slightly different now, right? And so it was needed. It was something that was definitely needed. So anyway, without further ado, let me go ahead and get started. Well, let me say this first. There are a lot of people that ask me, hey, how do you write a book? And I always tell them that the most important thing for a writer is to get what's in your head, in your mind, right? Get it out of your mind and get it onto the keyboard, the paper, or whatever you're doing. And they say, well, then how do you, where do you start? And I always tell them, you start wherever you want the book to begin, right? You don't start at the end of the book and then work your way forward. To me, that would be really, really difficult, but maybe some people will do it that way. But if you want, let's just say, for instance, if you're interested in writing a memoir, for instance, you might want to say, you know what, I want to start this memoir when I was 10. And then, so if that's the case, then you think about all the stuff that happened when you were 10, and then you start jotting all that stuff down, and then you move forward to however long you want to do it, right? I also tell people that whenever you have something in your mind, try to get it out of your mind and onto the keyboard and the paper, even if it's just one sentence, one paragraph, a page, a whole chapter. Write every chance you get. And that'll help you from getting what's known as writer's block. A lot of people have that because they sit down and they want to create an entire book, right? They sit down and just get started, and then the next thing you know, they stop because they don't know what to do. Because you got to take time, right? It's going to come to you, but you can't force it. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why people have difficulties writing books. And I've helped people write books already, maybe 5 people already. And I tell them the same thing. Just take your time and write as often as you can. So one thing about my books, and if you haven't noticed, Syrup Sandwiches, Reasons, Fatherhood Matters, Raw Power, I write a lot of books. Well, my main books are nonfiction, right? Because I like to write things that I can relate to, things that are real. And when I was done writing my first book, I questioned myself as if this to say, like, can I do something besides write about stuff that's factual, which is not a bad thing, but I never really believed in myself enough to think that I had the creativity to step outside the box and write a fiction. So when I decided to write Reasons, I was challenging myself to see if I can do it. And even though Reasons is a fiction, but it's there's a lot of truth into it, right? There's a lot. It's based on a lot of true stories, but it's still a fiction. So, and there you can see that I keep, even though I'd like to write about nonfiction, even my fiction book has things that's believable, right? It's not like doing science fiction or anything like that. It's about stuff that people, when they read it, they can say, this is really something that probably, is happening, or I've heard of it happening before, and things like that. So it's not like so far-fetched that you can't even imagine it happening. Reasons. I'm going to read the back of this. And, unfortunately, I'm getting to a point in my life where I got to start using readers a little bit more, and I'm not liking that at all, because keeping up with glasses and doing all this stuff, I feel for y'all. I really do. For those who do wear glasses. It says Reasons. After the devastating loss of his wife, Kyle Blankenship, and his wife, Ryan, see, I'm not even used to glasses. After the devastating loss of his wife, Kyle Blankenship and his son, Ryan, embark on a journey to piece together their shattered lives. However, when Kyle is thrust into a whirlwind of mystery, betrayal, and danger, their world is once again turned upside down. Racing against time, Kyle delves into the dark underbelly of secrets and lies surrounding his wife's murder. As he uncovers the truth, he faces a formidable adversary determined to silence him and endanger his family. Will Kyle's quest for justice lead to redemption, or will he be consumed by the shadows of vengeance and despair? In this gripping tale of love, loss, and resilience, Kyle must confront his inner demons and fight for the ones he loves before it's too late. So let me paint this picture for you. This is how I look, and you guys already Reasons. This book, could you imagine at your job, sitting at your job? No, let me go back. Let's say you're someone who's had trouble with alcohol and you've been in and out of rehab a couple of times, and you got yourself straight, right? It was difficult, difficult on your family, and now you got yourself straight. You're doing better, and then you have a child, and you and your wife and your child, you're growing up, everything is fine. He hasn't had any relapses or anything like that, so he continues to function like normal people, right? And then one day, while he's at work, he receives a phone call. He picks up the phone on his cell phone, and it's a call from the Virginia State Police. And they said that there's been a break-in in his house, and his wife has been taken to the hospital and told him not to go home, basically come to the hospital. So he gets to the hospital and finds out that, some real terrible things have happened. And so he's trying to find out what happened. Nobody's giving him any answers. And so eventually she winded up passing on. So I'm not going to tell you guys the whole story, but the person, his son may not be his son, right? So that's a twist and turn. The guy that might be the father of her son, he's an ex-cop. So let that marinate for a minute. So it's going to be a lot of twists and turns. The book has sex in it. It has murder. It has all the stuff that makes a good movie, right? And so we'll see what happens. We'll see where this book goes. And so many people love this book so much. I decided to write a part 2. They kept saying, "Hey, we need a part 2. We need a part 2." So I wouldn't recommend reading part 2 until you read part 1, but take a look at it. So, as I said earlier, when I was talking about how men have been, like, especially when I was growing up in the past, men used to, the ones that I was around anyway, they were, first of all, they were, like I said before, they were abusive, right? So I didn't really learn anything from them. I saw how terrible they were. They didn't give me any guidance. My brother, none of us, any guidance, any instructions on how to be, halfway decent person or anything. So we had to figure out what to do. But we did know that they expected us to be tough. They expected us not to cry. They expected us to suck it up, right? And that same mentality has been playing on for years, right? And a lot of people have gone through that. And then it's been so terrible for people to have to hold all this stuff inside, especially for men, right? To hold these things in, all those difficult things that we've gone through. They want us to just hold it in, suck it up. And now you see what some of the results are, right? Some of the guys are out here killing people, losing their minds, and just, it's exploding, right? It's at a point where they can't hold it in anymore, right? Because they haven't had any treatment for it. They haven't had any therapy. They just processed it, right? Or thought they were processing it. And it got to a point where, they couldn't deal with it. And so that's one of the downfalls of telling people to hold on to all your feelings, don't share it, suppress them, right? You'll be okay. And a lot of times, especially when you have, let's just say mental illnesses, when you have a mental illness, they don't automatically just go away, right? You need some help, whether it's medication, therapy, or a combination of the both, time, right? You need all those different things, and they don't just go away. So a lot of times people don't believe that, that their problem is big and that they should take care of it until it's too late. So let me read something. It says masculinity in modern men. Modern masculinity is defined as by a shift from traditional stoicism and dominance towards emotional intelligence, vulnerability, and authenticity. Today, healthy manhood embraces strength through accountability and actively challenges rigid gender norms, allowing men to cultivate deeper relationships and prioritize mental health. Masculinity today is undergoing a massive cultural transition, moving away from rigid traditional roles like stoic emotional suppression that I just spoke of, right? Holding everything inside, not even voicing your, how you feel, emotionally, how's it affecting you? A lot of times men just hold on to it, right? And the sole breadwinner expectation. Modern men are navigating a blend of traditional values and progressive ideals, often caught between the pressure to be emotionally vulnerable and the desire for classic strength and accountability. So now it's getting to a point where it's okay for men to be vulnerable, right? Because in the past, that was not even an option, right? No one wanted to see a man cry, and no one wanted, men to, tell how they was really feeling, what's on their mind. And so, I want to talk about a lot of different things dealing with men, not today, but, as I progress, like what society gets wrong about men. Strong men still need healing, fatherlessness, and its long-term impact, right? So a lot of times, not having a father could have some impacts on the person. I mean, fortunately, I did okay, but there are some people who are struggling, right? Not having that guidance, not having that structure, not having that discipline that they needed. Some of them are in jail, some of them are dead, right? So that's a really big thing, right? And then another thing, like why some men sabotage success, right? Sometimes, we got to realize that, men can sometimes sabotage success because they get pulled into the wrong direction, right? They go into gangs, they go into drugs, they go into, different crimes. And next thing you know, they sabotage their own success because, they could have been on the path to greatness. They were going to school at one point or another, and they were doing fine, and then it just stopped, right? So, and a lot of those things are a lot of those things are caused by trauma, right? For instance, let's just say something bad happens to one of their parents or someone they love. And some people can't deal with grief, and they don't have any treatment for it, or they don't seek any treatment for it. And then they lash out in other ways, right? Crimes and abuse and drug addictions. Another thing is masculinity versus ego, surviving childhood dysfunction as a man, breaking generational cycles, similar to what I did. Like I said, all the men in my family were abusive. So I didn't want to be like that. So that cycle of abuse, that cycle of neglect, that cycle of emotional ignorance, if you will, I don't have that, right? And my son is not, have to deal with that. So I'm glad and I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to be able to say that I've been able to break that cycle, and I want other people to do the same thing, right? And I often say this on my own social media, that if your parents didn't do the best that they could, and you saw that some of the flaws that they had, and you're doing those same things, then all you're doing is just doing the same thing over and over. You're not making it any better. So we have to search ourselves and see what we're doing wrong and fix it, right? How men hide depression, the pressure of being the provider, what real leadership looks like in men, why men need brotherhood, and the difference between confidence and control. So let me get back into this. It says the depth of the provider mandate. For generations, a man's identity was deeply tied to his abilities to be the sole financial provider for his family. Today, with women making up a massive portion of the workforce, economic changes, and shifting household dynamics, this role has been redefined. Many men are struggling with what it means to be a provider when their partner earns just as much, leading to both greater equity, excuse me, leading to greater equality and confusing loss of traditional purpose, right? So a lot of guys feel like they're not the breadwinner anymore. They're not doing those things that make them feel like they're in control or they're in charge or anything like that. So a lot of guys have problems with that, right? And so when they have problems like that, that creates other problems, right? Maybe they don't want to talk about it. Maybe they get angry. Maybe they even become abusive. There's a lot of different things that can happen when men sometimes feel like their role as a man is not there, or they're not able to fulfill that role, right? So that's a slippery slope. And then another thing says the rise of emotional intelligence. Unlike older generations, modern masculinity increasingly embraces qualities once incorrectly dismissed as unmanly, such as vulnerability, self-reflection, and empathy. Society is actively encouraging men to break the don't feel rude and seek therapy or community. So, like I was talking about before, back in the day, therapy, I wouldn't say it wasn't an option, but it wasn't something that people talked about a lot, right? Especially in the Black community. I never really heard much about therapy. I didn't even know it was, I mean, we couldn't afford it, first of all, because growing up poor, growing up without a whole lot, therapy, sometimes it's the last thing on your mind. A lot of times you're thinking about how you're going to get your next meal, right? How you're going to pay your bills, how does life look, and sometimes you can't think about therapy, right? That's not even on your mind, but that is something that needs to be talked about. I have some comments. Let me see what they are. Do you use chat box? We could talk, just talk. What made you write this story? I wrote the story of Surf Sandwiches because, and I think I alluded to this previously, is because the things that I was going through, right? Even though they were common to me because everybody else was going through them, I knew even at a young age that those were not good things, right? To be hungry, right? To be bullied, to be discriminated against, to see, someone die and just go through so much stuff and so much trauma. I knew something was not right with that. And so having gone through all that and survived, if you will, I wanted to write about it because I know that people are still going through it right now. They're struggling with a lot of different issues, especially with the way things are with the economy and just, it's a mess out here, right? And so a lot of people are probably teetering on the edge of giving up, really. They really are. And so we have to be mindful of how we interact with people too, because we don't want to do or say anything to them that just sends them right off the edge. But these people that are struggling and going through all these different things, I want to write something for them to say, to be able to read and say, you know what, this person has gone through it, right? And just because I've gone through it, that doesn't mean everybody can go through it, because everybody's different, right? But they can see maybe some of the things that I'm going through are some of the same things that they're going through. And maybe they'll be able to read my book and say, you know what, I handled it a little bit differently, right? This is how I came out of it. or maybe they'll look at what I've gone through and say, you know what, that's a good idea. Let me try this. And one of the biggest things that I tell people, even when you're going through whatever trauma or whatever you're going through in life, is that if you lack the belief in yourself, right? You lack the belief in your deity. If you believe that you can't do something, then you're more than likely not going to be able to do it. And so I encourage people to believe in your God, believe in yourself, right? And then the title of the book is Choose Not to Give Up. So whatever you're going through, you have to make sure that you don't give up, because you got to be able to keep trying. And even though you get knocked down, you got to keep trying, right? And it's not going to always work out for you, but you can't give up, right? That's the bottom line. And so I wrote it because I knew that it would help some people, and reading the reviews on the book, it's helping a lot of people, right? And so that's my goal. My goal is to get this book out there to as many people as possible. And so that's why today today, and tomorrow I'm giving it away free. I want people to look at it, read it, and come away with something from it. As everyone who has read it, I haven't heard anything bad about it at all, because it's my life, and it's relatable. People understand, the pain. They some people said they cried, right? Some people said they laughed. Some people said they had a combination of both. But the book, it really is good. It took me a while to get to the point where I'm saying, yeah, it's a great book, because I didn't want to be, bragging and boastful and all that stuff. But it really is. Okay, that's the bottom line. Read it for yourself and see. And when you're done, all I ask is leave a review on Amazon. I really read these reviews. I like to know what people think. And since I've been reading these reviews, they really do love this book. And so I'm gonna continue to do the things that I do. And that's another reason why I go out and I talk to these, I talk to people at different times in their life. What I mean by that, times in their life, is like I start with the young kids, and I go to people that are in shelters. So I want to make sure that I give time to people who need time, right? People who want to hear somebody having something positive to say, somebody who's telling them that they can still make it, right? Somebody's telling them that it's not over yet. Somebody who's able to tell them you're going to make it through, right? And a lot of times they don't hear that. A lot of times people they quit, they just give up, right? And so I'm an advocate for people not quitting, right? So that's why I wrote it. Let me see if there's any other question. Are you working from life experiences? Yes, I am. This is, and I think they mean I'm writing from life experiences. I am. I'm writing. These books that I'm writing are based on life experience, especially Surf Sandwiches, because it's a memoir. It's actually my life, right? So, and then even in Reasons, the things that I write about are like a man who loves his wife so much, right, that he's going to go to whatever ends to find out what happened to her, right? He's trying to protect his son, even though it may not be his son, and I'm not going to tell you if it is or not. But it shows that the compassion. It shows the level of love and the bond of family too, right? So not having the family that I wanted when I was growing up. What I mean by the family that I wanted, it's like a father who was there that I could talk to, like when something was on my mind and my mom couldn't figure it out and didn't know what to tell me. I could at least go to him and say, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about this? You think it's okay to join the Navy, right? You think I should wait to get married? Any of those things, right?" And I didn't have all those things, so that's why I try to make sure that I'm available for my son, so that when the time comes and he needs to have someone to talk to, I'm there, right? So, and then like for instance, Raw Power, the book about bullying. Even though after I wrote Surf Sandwiches and with all the stuff in it, including bullying, I was bullied when I was younger because I was quiet. I was shy. I just wanted to go to school and learn what I could and eventually move out of the terrible situation that I was in. So I wanted to go to school and do that. And then there was people who always wanted to try me because I was quiet, right? I was shy. And I was tall, just like I am now, but I was skinny. I was really skinny. And people thought they could beat me. They thought they could walk over me, but they didn't. They found out that I can fight. And luckily for me, I could fight. And so oftentimes I would beat somebody up. And what's strange, right? It was always no one my size has ever tried to fight me, right? it was always somebody short that had something to prove, the Napoleon complex. Let me get the big guy so I could have bragging rights and everybody be scared of me. And then when I beat them up for trying to bully me, people would say, "Hey, man, why are you beating up on that little guy?" And I said, the little guy started with me first, right? So they should leave me the hell alone. But that was not the case. But anyway, you'll hear about those different stories and things like that in the book as well. But I want to write about raw power because I know that children are being bullied just like I was. And I want them to know that even if you are being bullied, right, make sure you tell somebody about it. But you don't have to let that take away who you are, right? That should not, your character as a person. That shouldn't change who you are. And even though you've been bullied, that you can still find a level of forgiveness. So that's what the book about. So it's a real enduring book, right? And so what I initially did, I wrote that book, and then I decided to turn it into a coloring book. So the story stayed there, but I took all the color out, added some more pages in the back for the children to color, so they can read the story and then they can color it as well. So it keeps them engaged at the same time while they're reading about bullying. So, and the book of short stories is called The Day We Forgot to Smile. These are stories that if you read it, you say, you know what? I remember, I'm going to tell you about this one if I haven't said it already. In this one story, this lady and her girlfriend, she invites her to go out to dinner, and she says she's going to take care of everything. And they go out to dinner, and all of a sudden she can't find her check. She can't find her credit card, right? And next thing you know, this lady who's already struggling with her kids and didn't want to go in the first place, but her friend coached her into it and said, "Hey, you're gonna be okay. I'm gonna take care of everything." Kind of find out she had to wind up taking money from where she didn't really have to pay for that meal, which was quite expensive. And then her friend ghosted her, right? So it's stories like that, right? A truck driver who comes back, from a long drive home and find out that his wife is cheating on him, right? So things like that happen all the time. All these stories are things that happen, right? And so the good thing that I like about it is 17 different stories. So you get to pick and choose which one you want to read, or if you read all of them, that's fine. But some people like to skip them and pick different ones. So you might start at chapter 10, right? So it's a really, really good book. I enjoyed it. And the reason why I wrote it is because I know that some people have a short attention span and they don't want to read a book from the first chapter all the way through. So that gives them the opportunity to read one, take some time, go to another one, and it's working out well. And then lastly, I did part 2. Well, I already spoke about Fatherhood Matters. I spoke about that the other day, and I wrote about that because that's a nonfiction as well. It's about the roles that we as men play, right, in the lives of our children. And we have to be vulnerable. We have to be present. We have to be engaging. There's a lot of things that we have to do. And we're getting better, but we're not there yet because a lot of our children are still out there in the streets doing terrible things. So we definitely need to make sure that, we're on point with what we need to do and do those things. And then back to this, it says the shift aims to reduce male isolation and toxic coping mechanism, but many young men still find this transition difficult to balance with societal expectations of unyielding resilience. And then lastly on this one, it says cultural polarization. It says, because of these rapid changes, masculinity has become heavily polarized. Some cultural spheres emphasizes a return to classic alpha dominance as a reaction to modern anxieties, while others advocate for conscious or evolved masculinity, which redefines strength through partnership, alliances, and compassion. This has left many men feeling alienated or confused about how to behave appropriately in both professional and personal spheres. So this thing about masculinity in modern men is real, right? It's real, and I'm glad that we are getting to a point now where we realize that we have emotions and we need to not always hide them, right? So, for having said that, I'm going to go ahead and get ready to go on the break, and then I'll read some more of the comments, and I'll jump into the bread box letters, and I'll be right back. And thank you so much. Here we go. I'm going to show you raw power.
Does being different ever feel like a burden? Have you ever faced someone who tries to bring you down? You're not alone. Many kids face bullying, but there's a way to rise above it. In Raw Power, meet Ari, a young boy who discovers his inner strength. With hard work and dedication, he builds his confidence and learns to stand up for himself. Raw Power is a heartwarming story that teaches kids the importance of self-belief, personal growth, and forgiveness. It shows them that they can overcome bullying and become resilient, kind-hearted individuals. Empower your child to face challenges with courage and compassion. Get your copy of Raw Power today.
Welcome back. So on my social media platform, particularly TikTok, I'm going to start doing it on Instagram soon. But on Wednesdays, what I do is read red box letters, and red box letters are basically letters, anonymous letters that people send in, telling me about things going on in their life, situations, marriage, anything. And so what I'll do is I'll read these letters to the panel. My panel they're excellent, right? They're very experienced. They've been through a lot. They know a lot. And I'll read these letters, and we'll brainstorm, if you will, and come up with some ideas of how these people can address or, work on fixing what they're going through. A lot of times we'll suggest counseling, therapy, a number of different things. And so people trust me enough to send me their letters with their own personal lives and stories. And, I'm moved by that because they know that my platform is a safe space because, we don't have an environment where people are, yelling at each other, cussing each other out and doing things like that. We're all mature, and I enjoy doing it. So anybody who wants to follow me, my handle is Books by Anthony Owens. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All of them are Books by Anthony Owens. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this first one. You know what? I did say I was going to read some more. Before I do that, let me read some more of those comments. Definitely pure wisdom, my brother. I'm Brother Danny. Nice to meet you. Are you working from life experiences? Okay, that's all I have for now. So here we go. It says, hello, panel. Me and my boyfriend live together, and we are renting a house, and we split all of the bills 50-50. This has been working out fine now for 2 years. We were hoping to get married one day and have our own house. Then things turned bad. My boyfriend got into a fight at work, and they fired him. He said that one of his coworkers called him the N-word, and this wasn't the first time. He is the only Black in his department, and oftentimes his coworkers make underhand jokes about race. My boyfriend told me that he has spoken to his supervisor about the behavior in the office before, but nothing was ever done. He said that when he was called the N-word around 4 other coworkers, all of them just laughed. He lost it, and that's when he got into a fight. They fired him on the spot, and now he has been out of work for a month and is having a difficult time finding work. I am very supportive of him, but I can't afford all of the bills by myself. What can I do? What can I say to him because he has been so depressed? I feel so bad for him. How long should I give him before I move out? Wow. Well, let's dissect this. If you guys have any questions or comments, please put it in the chat. So they've been together for 2 years. They want to get a house together. Things are working out fine. Someone called him the N-word. He's apparently been called that before at work, and he told his boss and told people, and nothing's ever happened. And then he got into a fight. So the problem is that, we live in an environment where people are racist, and they're going to say and do things that's not right, that's not fair. My suggestion to him should have been, even when no one did anything about it, to start looking for another job somewhere else, right? Or file a lawsuit or something, but not to allow, them to get the best of him by him fighting. That's probably what they wanted him to do, right? They probably said so many things for so long, and he just ignored it and didn't say anything. And they figured they'd go ahead and push him to his brink, and that did it. But personally, I would have did it the way I said. I would have, went to the HR, filed a lawsuit, looked for another job. But I know that if I fight, then I'm definitely going to, I can go to jail and I can lose my job, right? So what else, what else could happen? And so she says that she supports him, right? And she feels bad for him because, he's been so depressed. Now, I can imagine that he is depressed because he doesn't have a job anymore, and he has, has someone that he's been providing with, to build something, and now he can't. So this has the potential for it to spiral out of control emotionally, because he may become so depressed that he doesn't see that there's any hope, right? He may feel like, I can't find a job, my girl is struggling on her own. It can easily spiral out of control, and he could snap, right? He can go back to the office and shoot up everybody. I don't know, but things like that have happened. So in this case, she might want to see about finding a way for him to seek some therapy, see if he can get some part-time jobs or whatever he can do, right? But, this depression is a real thing. And so if it's not treated, it can definitely get worse. And let me see what else she says. And then she wants to know how long she should give him before she move out. See, now that's a tricky question. How long should you deal with something that's not good? How long should you stay in the situation that is not right and that's bad? That's really up to you, right? That's up to you how long you can deal with it, how long your finances will allow you to be able to do it the way you're doing it, because it varies, right? I wouldn't, I'm not an advocate for saying just give up on him, because, if he's out there trying, then, you got to try to support him as long as you can. But the reality of it is you still have to take care of yourself too. So if it gets to a point where it's not working at all, you have to think of some other options, right? You might have to move back in with your mom. He might have to move back in with his mom or whatever. But that's a tough one. But I think that the main thing here is to make sure that he gets some kind of help, because if he's depressed, right, depression, it'll eat away at your soul, right? It can consume you, where you're at a point where you don't want to do anything, right? You don't want to speak to anyone. You don't want to engage with anything. You don't want to do anything. And then you have nothing but thoughts, right? Things going through your mind, and that can lead to something really bad. So good luck with that one. Here's another Breadbox letter. Let's see if I have any comments up there. It says, I know that you and your panel might think that I am wrong for this, but we all make mistakes. I just want to know what you think. I met this girl online, and we have been talking for about 5 months. We would spend a lot of time talking on the phone. We only lived 4 hours away from each other. I never saw a live photo or video of her, and we both thought that would make it more interesting. That didn't make any sense. I never saw a live photo or video of her, and we both thought that would make it more interesting if we did not see each other. That way we could learn to like each other for who we were as individuals and not have it based on looks. Okay, so they're trying to not look at each other, not see each other, and that could be tricky, right? You could be catfish, you could be, so they don't want to see each other. They just want to talk. They want to get to know each other. They don't want to do FaceTime. They don't want to let each other know how they look. That's risky. But I mean, I understand that, right? If you're trying to get to know someone, you don't want it to be based on how good they look, right? Which, I mean, I know that's a big deal, right? You want to make sure that you have somebody that you're compatible with, emotionally, physically, and you just want to be able to make sure you can engage with somebody that you like, and not seeing someone and sharing a lot of stuff with them, talking over and over. You are building a bond, but at the same time, you don't know. You might know the character of the person. You might get to learn the character of the person, but you don't get to see how they look, right? You don't get to see, their expressions when you talk to them. You don't get to see their smiles. You don't get to see a lot of things about them. So that's not the way I would go, but to each his own. So we decided to finally meet, and we were to meet at a restaurant, and we told each other what we would be wearing so that we could spot each other. I ran into traffic getting to the restaurant, and so she was already at the restaurant when I arrived. As I approached the restaurant, I was able to see into the restaurant from the outside, and I saw her. She had on what she described. When I took a second look through the window, this lady was not pretty at all, and she looked like one of those people from My 600-Pound Life. I felt really bad, but I turned around as fast as I could and left. I know that I was wrong, and it was my fault too, but I knew that I could not leave this lady on, and it would not work. I got back into my car and called her and told her that I was sorry, but I could not make it. I also told her that she could send me the bill for her travel and dinner, and I would pay for it. How would you have handled this? First of all, I wouldn't have put myself in that situation where I didn't see who I was talking to. And since you chose to do that, you gotta eat that one, buddy. I think you could have been man enough to go in there and at least say, I don't know, you could have been man enough to go in there and had dinner with her and talk to her and fill her out, talk and tell her, you don't think it's going to work, I don't know. But I think you took the coward way out and you ran. You didn't even, tell her the truth. That's how I would have handled it. I would have not gotten in that situation in the first place. But then if I did decide to do what you said, you did with not seeing her and all that, I would have been mad enough to at least look her in the eyes and say, after dinner, talk to her or whatever, and just let her know that I don't think it's going to work, for whatever reason you decide, I wouldn't say it's because you're too big or you don't look good or anything like that. I just say, well, maybe I don't think we're as compatible as I thought we were or something, but you don't have to just diss her like that. So, and I know that happens all the time. People, stand people up all the time for dates. That happens, but just be a man about it and stop being a coward. Let me get back to reasons now. Let me see if I can find something interesting for you all to hear about. So I'm just picking someone random. I haven't highlighted anything. It says, this is chapter 4. It says, this can't be real. After my 4th shot of whiskey, I stopped counting and kept drinking. The amber liquid seared my throat, a sensation I embraced within its numbing warmth. With work called off and Ryan at school, I found myself free for the first time in years, free to think, feel, and sit idle. I did not like it. Being alone with my feelings had never led to a good place. The coping mechanisms I learned in rehab about dealing with such moments were wiped from my memory the moment I got the call from the police about my wife being in the hospital. Watching her lose the battle of her life erased everything. I had learned about staying positive and hopeful. Let me get to the point where he gets that phone call. Because when I wrote it, I was thinking how I would feel if I had received a call like that, right? And it's hard to say, right? You're working, everything is normal, and you get this random call, and it just blows your mind. It just turns your world upside down. I know I should have been better prepared and highlighted all this stuff, but do we have any? Someone said they agreed. It's a lawsuit. Take this down there. Lawsuit if he has documentation. So the guy who was called N-word and all that stuff at work, and no one did anything about it. Someone says that he should have a lawsuit, file a lawsuit if he had the documentation, and I agree with you, right? Because I like to think that he was documenting all that stuff all along because it's been happening over and over. It says patients stick with him if he has a car, do Lyft, etc. That's a good point, right? So the person who lost his job because he got into a fight, you can do side jobs, you can do Lyft, yeah, Uber, and all that stuff, and so and I don't know. Well, they do a background on you as well, but I don't think it will catch up that soon, right? But because I've actually done Lyft and Uber part time, did it for like a year and a half, 2 years. You meet some strange people. You meet a lot of drunk people too. But the one thing about the Lyft drivers that I really enjoy is that having been a Lyft driver and an Uber driver, I took it very seriously about getting people home safely, right? That was my number one priority, to make sure that these people who were intoxicated, who were in bad situations, got home safely. And so I felt like I was doing a service because they were not out there driving drunk and killing somebody, right? So, and that's why when I take a Uber or Lyft, I always tip them because they get me home safe, whether I've been drinking or not, whether I'm just getting from point A to point B. If they get me there safely, I think they deserve a tip. A lot of people don't tip. A lot of people, hopefully they do, but people should. And I have so many people tell me, "Hey, I'll tip you." I ain't seen a nickel. But the people lie all the time, don't they? Anyway, here's another part that I want to read. It says, I woke to the familiar sound of the alarm, my eyes snapping open instinctively. Years of rising at the same time had etched a process into my body. Yawning and stretching, I reached out for my wife, only to find the bed empty. A slight frown creased my forehead as I noticed her absence. Undeterred, I rose and headed for a hot shower, preparing for the day ahead. Despite the early hour, I was only mildly groggy, thanks to our habit of turning in early on weekdays. The Blankenship household operated like a well-oiled machine during the work week. Ryan was off to school, I was off to work, and Kathy was engrossed in her church meetings. While religion was not a focal point for me, Kathy found joy and peace in her church community. We'd made a pact early on that our children would forge their own paths, religion and lifestyle choices blooming organically. Questions, of course, would be met with open ears. Ryan, as a mirroring image of his mother's movement, often peeked with wide, curious eyes at her Sunday routines. "Dad," he once piped up, his voice laced with syrup-thick curiosity, "what's so fun about going to church? Mommy likes it a lot." I knelt before him, the warm rug cool against my knees. Sunlight slanted through the windows, casting a warm mosaic of colors on the throw rug. "Your mom has a bunch of friends there, bud," I explained, ruffling his hair that held a faint scent of bubblegum shampoo. "They make her happy, like how playing superheroes makes you happy." The story is really, this is a good book, right? Because there's a lot of twists and turns, but then there's a lot of love, right? There's a lot of love that he has for his son, that he has for his wife. And sure, he struggled with alcohol early on in his life. And, sometimes, when people go to rehab, sometimes they get better and sometimes they don't, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that's true. beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And just because this lady was big, she could have been the best thing for him. But he allowed that to, and then somebody said, people forget when you don't have an income, you can't keep up with the insurance and property taxes and much more. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so when you lose your job, and unless you've had that happen to you before, it's a eye-opening experience, right? It's something that's hard to fathom, first of all. And then, that might be a new norm for a little while, right? You have to figure out, how am I going to pay for this? How will I make it? And so it's easy to become depressed, right? It's easy to give up. And so many people have lost their jobs and killed themselves. And so, I try to, I talk to people a lot of times, even when I was in the military, there was people who, they were borderline suicidal, and, I would talk to them about, the family that they would leave behind, the people that still love them, and that, no matter what they're going through, this shouldn't be the end all be all, right? So, that they can still overcome it. But, if you're dead and you're gone, you can't do anything but leave people behind to grieve for you and deal with the pain of why you left, and, why you couldn't talk about it, why we couldn't get some help for you, right? So, and like I said before, I am an advocate for therapy. I really believe in therapy. I believe that, when you get to a point in your life where you feel like things are not working out for you like they should, things, you don't enjoy the things that you're used to, you don't do anything fun anymore, it's time to seek some help, right? It really is. And there was a stigma about people seeing, having therapy or seeking therapy, that they were weak. I beg to differ. I believe that you're strong when you seek therapy. I believe that you're strong when you seek counseling. I believe that you're strong when you want to do something to make yourself whole again, when you want to be that person that you used to be and you're doing something about it. There's no weakness to that at all. Just the opposite. And a lot of people don't believe in that. So they find themselves screwed up. They find themselves, mixed up, in jail, dead, right? Here's another thing. It says, waking up from a recurring nightmare that had haunted me since my wife's passing was not an uncommon experience, yet this time felt different, more visceral. Usually I dreamt of Kathy returning, unveiling the nightmare as nothing more than a bad dream. There were also dreams of a sweet reunion in the afterlife where we would be together again. But there was one nightmarish scenario, the one where Kathy's agonizing screams echoed through my soul, haunting my sleep. The mere thought of that dream sent shivers down my spine, and its aftermath only plunged me into the depths of turmoil. Tears streamed down my face as I awoke. My body drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like a drum, and my breath erratic. The impending panic attack threatened to engulf me, and in the dark, I stumbled towards the bathroom. Cold water splashed against my face, a feeble attempt to regain composure. In the dim light, I fumbled for pills, often to avoid the harsh glare that awaited me if I turned on the light. The bathroom remained a somber sanctuary for my nightly struggles. Returning to bed, I realized the night was still deep. The shadows within the room seemingly mocking my vulnerability. They morphed into the monsters I battled daily, and the tears once held back now flowed freely. Reality hit me like a freight train. A once beautiful, complete, and perfect life had crumbled into ruins. We were a family. Ryan had both his parents, and I had Kathy, my loving, supportive wife. She was safe and alive. And then it all unraveled. Happiness gave way to despair, and now my 12-year-old son faced the depths of depression. My existence now revolved around mere survival, clinging to each other for the sake of Ryan. Motivation eluded me. Life had lost its luster. Even my attempts to shield Ryan from the void left by his mother seemed feeble. I couldn't feel her shoes. She was irreplaceable. So when you read this, folks, you'll see why people love it. At least go in half on a dinner. Yeah. Well, yeah, I said at least, he said he was going to pay for it. So, but he could at least sat there and entertain her because they've been engaging with each other for a while, right? So, and said maybe she would have liked him. Well, I don't know. Maybe she would have liked him. The problem was he didn't like her. So, I don't think it was a matter of her. She didn't even get the chance to like him because he basically ghosted her. So, she don't even know what she really missed because she never really saw him, which sucks. After all that conversation that you had over and over, it's just bad. Wow, my time is almost up. That's amazing how time flies, right? So let me remind everybody again that Syrup Sandwiches Choose Not to Give Up, the award-winning book that have won several awards, is available for free in the Kindle version. And I remember somebody asked me, do I need a Kindle device? No, you don't need a Kindle device. You can put it on your phone, your tablet, your computer. You can put it on any of those things. All you have to do is go to Amazon. When you go to Amazon, you can just type in Anthony Owens and it'll bring up all my books. Or you can go Syrup Sandwiches, Anthony Owens. And then once you do that, you'll see the book Syrup Sandwiches and you'll see options. You'll see Kindle, you'll see the paperback, hardback, you'll see Audible. But the one that says Kindle, it'll say $0, $0, right? Just click on that and instantly download to your device and you can start reading within the next 5 minutes. So please leave me a review on Amazon. Let me know what your thoughts are. I put a lot of work into my book, to all of my books, actually. I'm at a point now where I really enjoy writing, but I don't know if I want to write any more books. Oh, another thing about writing, because I told you all earlier that people ask me about writing a book. The thing about writing a book, you got to think about it with the mindset of it's something that you want to do because you want to leave a legacy or whatever it is. But if you're writing a book thinking that you're going to become filthy rich, it doesn't happen like that, right? It really doesn't. You have to know the right people. You have to write the best book, and still sometimes it doesn't work out, right? So when you write the book, just have that in mind that you're writing this book to leave a legacy for your family or whatever, or you accomplish something that you've always wanted to do. And if you write more than one book, well, let me go back to the first book. If you write one book, you're gonna have to market it, right? You got to do some marketing. You got to do some promotion, video trailers. There's a lot of things you have to do to get your book out there so people know about you. You have to have social media. You have to build your platform up. Before I wrote my first book, I had no social media, no Facebook, Instagram, none of that. So I started from ground zero, right? And I still have a long way to go. And it became even more difficult when I wrote more than one book, because then you got to figure out, okay, which book do I focus on? Which one do I promote the most, right? And then promoting all of them costs money, right? So you got to be prepared for that too. So there's a lot of work involved, but if you're willing to do it and you have the time and the desire to do it, by all means do it. So anything is achievable, right? You just got to try. So having said that, I think I'm about to end, but I've enjoyed hanging out with you all again. This is my third podcast. I might get to a point where I'm doing it every other week because I have a lot of stuff, going on as far as promoting all these books, right? So just like I was talking about, there's a lot of stuff involved in it, right? Getting video trailers, pushing, making videos to send out, doing posts. It's a lot of work. It's like I need a daggone assistant, right? So, but if you're in it and you want to do it, you can do it. So I want to say it's been fun, and I want to give you a nice outro so you guys can listen, and I appreciate it. Follow me, once again, follow me on all my social media contact, Books by Anthony Owens. Don't forget to get your free book, Syrup Sandwiches. And I'll probably do another promotion of another book at some point later on in the future. So follow me, get your book, have a wonderful evening, and thank you all for hanging out with me.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Books by Anthony Owens Podcast show. We hope this was a conversation that truly inspired you and gave you something meaningful to carry forward. We appreciate you spending this time with us, learning, growing, and embracing knowledge that truly matters. Join us next week for another powerful and uplifting episode of the Books by Anthony Owens Podcast show. Until then, stay healthy, stay encouraged, and keep turning the pages of life. See you next week.